Hello again, it's Garson, and today I'm going to do a quick video going over 4 subclasses we played in honor mode. So straight up honor mode, these are replications. I can't go into my save file, so just keep that in mind. But we beat honor mode, pure classes, no multi-classing or anything. And it is a stress test, top left. Things are subject to change. There were some bugs along the way, but we managed. It was fun, and I did it all on live stream, right? So without further ado, there's not going to be a lot of action. This is just me talking about my quick rundown and my opinions after running the new subclasses. This isn't really a review, and if you're interested, we ran these 4 new subclasses, so kind of give you a sense or how they left an impression on me, right? Because I usually say in my videos, well, how do you level up or play these builds properly in an honor run? And that's why we run honor mode on the stream, especially now that having my hands on the stress tests, like I said, top left. You've seen me talk about these new subclasses, but what about actually going through the game and playing them? Are they going to be worth your time? Well, this isn't really a tier list. This isn't really anything beyond the impression I got. Did they hold up to my expectations? Were I wrong about them? Are they powerful? Can you just run them without doing any fancy multi-classes, right? So this was the actual rules in the honor mode. I don't have a lot of time to go through the honor mode or the stream and grab clips and whatnot. If I think something is worth showing in gameplay, I will, but I'll mostly be talking based on the run. And if you want to see that run, I've put it, it's in the live stream section of my channel. You can actually watch. There were some great encounters there, especially Answer was probably one of the coolest moments I've ever done in an honor mode run. But all 4 of these subclasses we're gonna talk about were excellent, just to skip ahead, right? But you can follow along right here on the right hand side as I go over some things. In the run, we did use only the new subclasses. There was no multi-classing allowed. Didn't use any mods to make sure the base game is being tested, as well as all the way from the beginning to completion on honor mode, where you can't take things back, can't reload the game, right? And the highest difficulty. But even with the highest difficulty, we weren't here for any kind of story testing. That's just not really what I do on my channel. But as much as I like challenge, this wasn't even for challenge. I tried to make these guys broken, busted, beat the game as well as I could, right? Utilizing whatever they brought to the table. But respec as needed if I felt like the characters, needed to change something. I kind of got the stats wrong on Gale a little bit. So we redid it. And sniff out any kind of bugs. I couldn't replicate some of these, so maybe it was just more player error. But I did find some weird stuff, like the dog splintering, but I'll talk about it. And of course, I always say, one of the rules is have fun. If anything is too restricting, but in this case, we were just really playing something that's a work in progress, and may even subject to change. So some of my opinions could change in the final release, but how did these 4 subclasses do, and what's the meaningless letter grade I could give them? Expectations, my expectations going in, because I made videos kind of analyzing them, but how did they actually play through and level up, right? And I think more or less just the impression of me like babbling on and being hyped about these. Did I like them? Not so much, are they the best ever? Are you gonna like them? Because I know that I really liked all 4, and we'll just hop right into it with Gale here. He was our Arcane Archer. My expectations was that, is this a spell bow? Do you fire arrows but actually cast spells all rolled into one? Is that what makes this unique? And I gotta say, A+ rating. We're not doing tiers. We're not doing S-class silly stuff. A+ is what I consider the best rating I could give something, at least in terms of a meaningless level, right? Just goofiness, just satirical. But I'm being a little, honest when I say this. Is I genuinely rate this really high. This surpassed my expectations. It is a spell bow. If you're looking to play a subclass that actually genuinely can cause spell effects, really powerful ones too. I'm going to keep reloading just to kind of demonstrate some of this if you haven't seen it, but check out the video, right? Covered Arcane Archer. It's just really nice to see that, yes indeed, you can just do things like banish people, but you have to know what you're doing. See, I didn't build up enough spell save apparently. Well, it doesn't even show you. Something I should mention in the notes here, but yeah, having the ability to do powerful effects while damaging, just like you're casting a spell and shooting an arrow. Wow, I'm getting really bad luck or something here. All right. Well, guess I don't know what I'm talking about, but okay, let's see if I blind him. Right, blinded. When I had Gale here, like, revved up, ready to go, he had the arcane acuity, he has high intelligence, high dexterity. He could not only do massive damage with his arrows, okay, but he could also cast some kind of spell effect. And I gotta say, Shadow Arrow and Banish Arrow were something I was assuming from my own game knowledge in Honor Mode was going to be fantastic, and it is. Just to keep a highlight on these arrows, we'll get to them, but casting while damaging with a ranged is insanely strong. Okay, you could make an argument that Swordsbard is a caster and a ranged damage dealer, yeah, but they don't do both at the same time. This compression of roles, a caster and a archer put into one. And even if you thought, okay, it's not as strong as this multi-class I've come up with, that doesn't matter. It is a unique spellbow playstyle, right? This is the most unique new playstyle out of all the ones I'm seeing so far. It's really crazy. Yeah, I do think it is the most unique playstyle because it's combining two key elements and it's doing it really well. And you do need to know how to build the character in terms of using the dexterity to land the arrow and the intelligence to cast like you would a normal spellcaster, right? It's just sad, and again, I should put it in the notes, that once again, Eldritch Knight, Arcane Archer, you cannot see your actual spell save, which is a really big deal. I hope Larian can change this for Eldritch Knight as well. You need to know what this is, but for those who don't know, these spell effects are typically a saving throw that happens after you land the arrow. Thankfully, you don't give up the ammunition if you miss the shot, but if you do land the arrow, you do give up the ammunition, and so you're hoping to land these wisdom saving throws, or maybe a charisma saving throw, right? Dexterity saving throw. You're hoping that these land, and the game doesn't really do a good job of telling you where this is coming from. It says proficiency, arcane acuity. It's actually your intelligence modifier from what I've tested, and I can now say that confidently because we were landing like blinds and banishments a ton, especially in the end game. Actually, if I wanted to add on to this, I would say Act 1, stats are okay. Int and Dex, I mean. Act 2, you need Acuity IMO. And Act 3, you can get away with spell, like high spell save DC. Like any way you could build it. Like the Devout Amulet and whatnot from Reggie. He's got Devout Amulet, or you can't see it, but I also built for lowering wisdom saving throws with the Brain Drain gloves and the mental inhibition, debuffing them, right? So like just putting all this together, it's worked the way I thought it would, right? If I can debuff their saving throws, right? I can mentally fatigue them and lower their wisdom saving throws here, -5 here, or just raising my own with acuity, arcane acuity from attacking with the helmet here, right? Like that's the way to play this, and it really works out into this unique play style. And so I'll just kind of shuffle along, right? Larian did the one thing they needed to do to make all of this work, which is the arcane arrows themselves. So if I actually finish these two, like just get them out of here. Okay, you're gone. Boom. I could banish this guy, or I could just explode him, whatever. Right? Like, obviously you still have the power of 3 attacks as a fighter. It's no joke. Right? But see how I use these shots? This isn't the way it is on tabletop, apparently, and Larian just really the only thing they needed to do to make this work as a subclass is this. You get more arrows on short rest. Okay, now, without ever mixing into a spellcaster, you're still a spellcaster, all thanks to this short rest resource, and you can fire off with impunity. If you miss the arrow, you don't lose the spell slot, which is actually very impressive compared to, like, for being technically a caster, right? So anyway, I'll just move on. Like, this was the key thing to get this right, and they did it, and then it just shows you what the potential was for this subclass all along. It's an absolute beast of a subclass, and it definitely fits on any team because there's actually, I don't know what the best arrow is. I just knew Shadow Arrow and the blinding effect really helps teammates with, when you blind something, they have a harder time hitting you, and you have an easier time hitting them. That's going to help any team. Banishment at level 3 is actually insane because effectively, if you banish something, right, you skip their turn for 2 turns. I've made the Spider Queen in Act 1 disappear. I've made the Ogres disappear. I've made I've made the fire dragon in the giant elder brain fight at the end game disappear, all because I shot an arrow. So I did damage and then skipped their turn for 2 turns and eliminated a big element and then could focus on the weaklings in the battle. That is very powerful. Okay, so I don't know what the best arrows are, but my guesses turned out really powerful options, and yet you have different options. I don't have all the arrows here, and I won't say that these are busted. All right, and it's sad that area arrows like this don't actually get your full bonus from like sharpshooter or whatever, or titan string doesn't really work with these arrows. But even with that being said, banish is crazy. I even banished an ally. I shot my star druid and got him out of an explosion, and then they came back to level 2 turns later because they were lethargic from going haste, so they couldn't move themselves. I saved them by making them effectively invincible and banishing them for a turn, right? Blind is just insanely good on any team. Okay, they can work on any team thanks to the choices of quote-unquote spells from these arrows. And go figure, fighters are just awesome because I can stuff a lot of stats into a fighter. I can get the necessary dex and int requirements because you have 4 feats, and at level 11 you fire 3 times. Like, so good. And then of course you can use 1 arrow of many targets with the helmet of acuity, like I anticipated, to raise your spell save DC ridiculous. You're never gonna miss that whiz saving throw, even against legendary bosses, because you just have the ability to just raise your DC while doing insanely good damage. And fighters are just insanely customizable thanks to these arrow types and not having a necessity for spell slots, right? And just get these back on short rest. This is a very, very good subclass, and it stands on its own before you try and make it more than what it needs to be in multiclassing. I'm not downplaying multiclassing, but I do like to check things at level 12 for that reason and grade them on that, because just on its own merits, it's insanely powerful. Okay, I think that's enough gushing about the Arcane Archer. So let's move on to Shadow Sorcerer. I give this an A rating. So this is as high as it's going to get beyond, you know, like exceptionally broken. Okay, but darkness, so you know, anything that can see in the darkness cloud spell is already broken. There's very few encounters in honor mode or tactician that can't just be broken by having this stupid darkness cloud. And I'll demonstrate this in just a moment, just to emphasize why I already knew this subclass was going to be impressive, right? I had my fun with it, but if you can see in your own darkness, which is what you do with 2 sorcery points, you can cast darkness, but now you're not blind to it, and anybody else would be, right? You can come down here, cast darkness, okay? They can't see who just did that. It could piss people off, right? But let's assume this was a battle, and now I can shoot out with advantage like this, and until they realize who's been doing this, that could have just gone on forever until they spotted me, okay? But then you can take it to a whole nother level. If somebody has blindness immunity, like Reggie wearing the ring, okay? He has blindness immunity from his ring, okay? He can run into that cloud, and now you have a team strategy where no one can see you, but you can see them, and can shoot outwards or just strike them from the shadows. This is always going to be powerful. Oh yeah, let's do it. Ooh. You can even see some of the synergies I had going on there, right? You have this like ultimate offense defense, and what are they to do, right? Other than a few attacks that can get in here, you're just kind of covered, and that's always going to be strong, but I won't kind of focus on that too much, right? I wanted to play also a melee sorcerer just to kind of like emphasize that you could do that, and I had the excuse to do that because Shadow Blade is ridiculous. For those who don't know, Shadow Blade is now just a spell. It's not concentration. You can still find the ring, but at level 3, sorcerer, warlock, wizard, you can now just cast Shadow Blade, okay? It's just a spell. And even better than that, it's a spell that upcasts to a stronger version on even levels. And so at level 6, you can see that I used my level 6 slot. I made a Shadow Blade with 4d8 damage, and I went all in on dex and a little bit of charisma, right? That's not how you play Sorcerer. Yes, it is. You can play any kind of character with melees and weapons. You just got to know what they bring to the table. And so Shadow Blade really adds something really cool to what you can bring to the table as a caster for multi-classing. But again, we're going pure class, right? So you can upcast this to a ridiculous level. And if you know about the Resonance Stone, The Resonant Stone doubles up damage, so this does like a stupid amount of damage. Okay, we won't even show it because I don't have it here right now, but Resonant Stone would double up any psychic damage with the Steeped in Bliss condition. But even without that, this thing is already strong, and it's fun to play it now at the earliest level 3, like that's so cool. So I went all in on that idea, and Sorcerers also get the new Booming Blade melee cantrip, where it combines weapon attacks. If you can hit with a weapon attack, you can hit with this, and it's unrestricted. As many times as you can land a main attack, you can land a Booming Blade, but it's still cantrip. So that means certain items like the Potent Robes can make it stronger, and we've talked about it. I won't go too much into it, but you can also quicken spell and now attack. As a sorcerer, no fighting extra attack, right? You can do another Booming Blade with your bonus attack. So I effectively, thanks to meta magic, can have 2 attacks every round if I want, or have the sorcery points, right? So Eyes of the Dark is also really great. I just showed it to you earlier. I'm gonna be real honest, Devil Sight on a Warlock is still better, and that's okay. You can put both of these guys on a team and they love darkness. They run around, you can break the game with a Warlock with Devil Sight, a Shadow Sorcerer running Eyes of the Darkness, and of course a teammate that loves to be abusing the darkness because they have the Eversight Ring. So this is already just innately a broken subclass because how darkness is so strong in this game. Kind of cheesy too. But a very standout feature to the new Shadow Sorcerer was the dog. So if you summon for 3 sorcery points, the Shadow Dog, we're not going to go into it too much depth, but I really wanted to see how versatile this little guy is, because you have to wait till level 6 to get him. He is a permanent companion, right? He also has blindness immunity and dark vision. Doesn't say it here, but he cannot be blinded in your own cloud either. Okay, I think he can be blinded, but just not in your Eyes of the Dark cloud. Okay, and he does have some decent initiative and stats, and he's permanent, so if you go ahead and, you know, keep him around, spend the 3 sorcery points, and he stays into long rest, he's going to be there the next long rest, but you got to buff him again and all that stuff. His little signature feature though is Ominous Bite. When he bites, he could potentially cause an omen, and I think this is, yeah, it's a constitution save. So I really just didn't have the right team to draw out this ability, but if he does cause an omen, it's going to give the enemy an element. Let's see how likely it is that I hit him. See, saved it. But if I would hit him with just a regular attack, a bite, right, he would get an omen of, like, say, acid, because it just seems to come up all the time. So that omen would have given me, if I attack with the right element, let's say anybody on my team attacks this guy when he has the acid omen, and I hit him with acid damage, the sorcerer who owns the dog would get 1 sorcery point. And you can think on the right team with the right constitution debuffs, right, reverb, bleed, you could cause this all the time. And if you could just cast the right element like Booming Blade or Firebolt or Shocking Grasp for the respective element, and it could be anybody, it could be a giant with Elemental Cleaver, you could be getting like mad amounts of refunds on your dog and your Eyes of the Dark, and just keep casting Eyes of the Dark and repositioning it. And I think that was the point of the dog. But I gotta say, while it's great, in the mid game it needs more love, and it really needs to be something you think about how you use in a team. So without going too much into depth, maybe you don't understand the dog, we'll cover Shadow Sorcerer dedicated. This was just me trying to state my opinion, how I left an impression. I don't think the dog's bad. I think, to be fair, I was more focused on my build idea, being a melee sorcerer who uses Shadow Blade in the darkness, right? Now, me and the dog can freely attack in here with advantage because he's blind, right? The dog can get a hit in and so on and so forth. And I wanted to use the new Shadow Blade and the new Quicken meta magic and all that stuff, right? Not Quicken meta magic, but yeah, I don't really detract quote unquote points from the dog. I think it's really good, but I think you need to build around it, or build a team that really utilizes it and enhances what it brings to the table. Because if you don't, this thing dies so quick. And yet, the funny thing about it dying quick is it has this little reaction ability. It's actually pretty cool. When it takes physical melee hits, it can splinter off into a smaller dog. And this can keep happening. In fact, the splinter dog can splinter off. I don't know if that was intended, but we saw some funny buggy stuff with that. Okay, so this is actually really cool But even with this feature, you kind of don't want it to get hit unless you're ready to heal it, or you know that you can use a bonus action to go into your inventory, heal yourself, or drink a speed potion. So it could very well be a great thing about this subclass, why you go 6 levels into it, but you really should plan your team around it. And why do I always get Acid Omen? I swear, if it even goes off, I always get Acid Omen. Was it a bug? Is it like fixed tables, or is it a skill issue? But yeah, there's some weird Splinter Dog bugs. Shadow Walk, by the way, is super cool. You get the ability to essentially Misty Step as a bonus action, 60 feet, and it even gives you the distant meta magic setup where you have more range. Like, so just for casting this for free as a bonus action, right? You can just warp to places with shadow or warp to your darkness, okay? It's kind of similar to the Shadow Monk, but then you get the distance spell meta magic for free, okay? So that is also really cool. Also, the the effing level 1 perk. All right. So, what's it called? Strength from the Grave, real quick. You may think, okay, so what? In Act 1 this might be good, but how good is it later on? This saved the run, because against Answer, we would have died. I just yellowed it. I didn't try to cheese the fight with the good old Globe of Invulnerability, for those who care, right? And so I was like, well, what ways can I like mitigate his explosion damage, or can I just kill him before? And we couldn't do it. And he kind of sidestepped me a little bit. But this stupid ability, it's great ability. What am I talking about? So if you go to 0 hit points, instead of falling downed, you'd actually just recover 1 HP, but it's once per long rest. Since it was the first fight of the day in a long rest period, she just exploded with everybody else. Turns out my strategy didn't work, but she survived and Answer didn't. So we won and it saved the day. I was like, so don't be telling me this is a bad perk. This, so once again, just breaks the game on a fundamental level because of darkness. Shadow Sorcerer is easily excellent. I was more concerned with how good is the dog, and I think I need to work on that, or it needs to be the identity of the build, or character. You have to really focus on it with a team, strategizing with it. Okay, let's move on to Star Druid. Go figure. Also an A rating. You can tell how I felt about these subclasses, right? So, spoiler alert, nothing went below my little A rating here, and I was being very critical with these. It's just, I knew that these subclasses have been given a lot of attention, and it's no surprise the Star Druid gets an A rating too. And I want to tell you something specifically happened with this guy, why it would lead up to such a high rating. Well, holy at level 10, right, you in this Star Druid, what happens is you have 3 different forms, and we talked about it in a video, right? Check that out. But at level 10, apparently it's not intentional, but you can change your form without expending wild shape charges. You can just change them anyway, anytime you want, okay? So in the heat of combat, even in turn-based mode, since it doesn't cost a reaction or a bonus action or an action, you just keep changing these, and these all have their different upgraded benefits. And so this is, I absolutely think, just from an analysis level, like, this is needed. If this is apparently unintended, screw you. Hate to be that way towards the devs who made a great game, right? But screw you, do not change this. This is the defining feature of why you would go this far into this druid, because you can be like, okay, I'm going to shoot a luminous arrow, and then I'm going to swap to the dragon, and then I'm going to maintain concentration on my moonbeam, and I'm going to keep recasting it. Oh, but I healed somebody, so let me switch over to the chalice. Let me get the heal in. Now that I've healed you with like healing word with a level 1 spell, I get a free heal. Like, give me a reason to go to level 10 and not multi-class, and make it a really good reason. And this was it. That's it. I don't need gear. I don't need anything. These forms are amazing as is. You could really multi-class with the identity of like, oh, I want concentration, I'll go dragon. I can't roll lower than a 10 when I concentrate, right? And I get this cool new like dragon breath. Wow, ooh, so cool. Okay. Or you could go to the archer form and be like, oh, I want to play like a magical archer with the bow. You could build around that, right? You go to the chalice and be like a life cleric multi-class, and it's all there. These forms are amazing. But if I stay in the actual subclass to level 10, give me a really good reason to go that far into it. I don't want it to get fixed or fixed, yeah. I don't want it to get quote-unquote fixed or whatever it is. I hope it's actually intended. It's intended on the tabletop. You can just freely change this. Sorry to focus so much on it, but it really deserves it at level 10. It's what really stole the show a little bit towards the end of the game. And also, my Astardian decided to leave the party because he was being a little baby and about not becoming a vampire lord, and left, and so he stole all my gear, and this still performed excellently without my reverb radiant orb set that was typical. Like I was gonna, so I just grabbed what we could in Act 3. It was pretty good gear, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, but I didn't need it. This is just, Druids are already versatile, and even more so with the forms, and even more so with that level 10, okay? So I do not like how changing the forms, though, until level 10, changing forms costs you wild shape charges. That's totally fine, nothing wrong with that. But if you change an area, like if I were to go to Worm's Crossing right now, I would lose, we could change areas, right? I would lose my star form, and I would have to spend another wild shape charge, which is stupid, because maybe I'm hopping over there for a small encounter or event or story thing, and hopping right back over here in Lower City. I don't know if this is a bug, but it's really annoying. It's really stupid. I don't think it should be like this. Left a bad taste in my mouth, but otherwise, that's not really a mark against the subclass itself. But yeah, the star form activates the shapeshifter boon ring, by the way. Okay. So what ring am I talking about here? Shapeshifter boon. So if you're in forms, right? Now that I can freely change forms at level 10, right? This ring is considered a mark of the shifter boost. I don't know if that's intended, but little caveat left an impression on me. So you can maybe, this guy was my thief for most of the game for sleight of hand, so just keep that in mind. That's what I was using that ring for. I also enjoy the emphasis on radiant damage and guiding bolt, especially in mixture with the archer form. For instance, I guess I'll just get into a little trouble here. You get these star maps, and we've covered this, but you get free level 1 cast of guiding bolt, and then you can also get the normal spell and upcast it. This is nice compliment to the fact that as a druid you get moonbeam and sunbeam eventually, right? But if you use a guiding bolt and you land it, right, you set up advantage for one more hit for your team, but also, let's say you comboed it with the luminous arrow, right? So you've now set up the luminous arrow to almost guaranteed hit, right? 99% there. So you give advantage while doing some radiant damage, and you don't have to use your precious spell slots that you want to maybe use on Sunbeam or Flame Blade or Call Lightning, right? So your druid versatility is still retained while still having this new option here, and then the star map forms and stuff. I still did not use it as much as I should have, admittedly, but I did enjoy that I could just cast them freely. I was usually burning through the star maps before I started using them as spell slots. So what I mean by this, all this right here, is that you could just toss out guiding bolts, and you don't have to like fear losing ammo, so to speak, or spell slots. It's really nice to just get into a sort of, I guess, intended playthrough. I thought I wanted to play the archer form like I just showed you there, but actually I fell in love with this dragon form because you just never get knocked out of Call Lightning. Moonbeam is a very underrated spell that's almost guaranteed damage. Eventually I used Insect Plague or even Sleet Storm, and nothing could really stop me unless it tripped me and sent me prone, which there's ways around that too. And I just love concentration spells with this guy. So, and Druid's got a lot of good ones. So again, I lost my gear, and this was fairly gear independent. Still turned out with the Starian running away like a baby. This was still great even without tons of OP gear on him, right? So lastly, I'll get into, oh yeah, everybody's favorite, the Death Cleric. So I hyped this guy up big time. I was hyped for him. I wanted to play Death Cleric, and I wanted to play it a specific way with green smites. And this guy was all about more. Just became our running tag. Everyone loves Reggie. We made a half-orc hireling from the get-go. I was like, what do we name him? And it turned into a meme, but okay, memes aside, this is exactly what I was looking for. And I gotta say some things about this, especially because Cleric, I don't think people understand how good Cleric is. So I knew how good this was going to be, and then we add the necrotic green smiting added into it. Okay, let me just go over some of this. Green smites. There is what I would consider, if you like smiting, you might want to try some Death Domain. And I don't need any multi-classing, I mean just go Death Domain. You might not be used to attacking only once per turn, but there's ways around that with Great Weapon Master and Haste. But here's what I mean. You can use Divine Strike on a reaction or manually. This adds a bit of a green smite in, okay? This 1d8 added to your weapon attack. But if you land any weapon attack, melee weapon attack, or spell melee attack, any melee attack, you get Touch of Death. And this is your Cleric Channel Divinity ability that does loads of green damage, and it feels like a smite. Not to mention, don't tell me you don't look like a badass doing this, going into something like this, right? And then you go for the smite. Okay, that's Channel Divinity, not a spell slot. This is a huge thing because these come back on short rest. This you always get once per turn, okay? And the Touch of Death can also work with melee spells like Inflict Wounds, okay? We talked about a lot of Touch of Death and Death Cleric in some videos, but I highly recommend this pure level 12 Death Domain for Death Knight fans easily, because that is the starting point, and it only gets better with you have access to basically every necromancy. I use Blade Barrier, I use the Insect Swarm, I use Cloud Kill, I use maybe not Ray of Sickness, but I use Spirit Guardians, double cantrips with Bone Chill and Toll the Dead, and even Ratmancy. I threw rats and blew them up with Bursting Sinews. Okay, then you're just a broken cleric who has Sanctuary. You have the standard stuff like freedom of movement, hold person. You're a proper necromancer also. You can animate 3 ghouls. You can have the mummy, the high level undead spell right here. You just feel like a Death Knight, man. All I wanted to do was green smites, but I played a little bit around like the Death Knight feeling of it with Kethric's armor and stuff. Come on. This was the best part of the run easily. Now, I went more melee and weapon focus for the more smites and smites on top of smites and inflict wounds with death touch and all that stuff, right? But, you know, you could have went something more of a focus on Reaper, giving you the double bone chill here. What I'll do is haste a little bit, show you what I mean. You can almost Eldritch Blast with bone chill by attacking the same target twice, 1, 2, right? And you can really build that up. Even just as a level 12 cleric, right? Touch of Death is insane. We saw how fun that is with the smites on reaction. Necrotic resist doesn't exist, by the way, because you have inescapable destruction, getting rid of necrotic resistance. It says spells ignore necrotic resistance. I really hope this isn't a bug, because currently any necrotic damage you do is ignored when it comes to resistances, and that's the way tabletop is apparently supposed to be. It's what I was hyped about. It's what makes level 6 in this class so powerful. Okay, Inflict Wounds is right at home here. If you ever wanted a build that plays with Inflict Wounds, look at the stupid damage you get at level 1 and goes all the way up to a massive 8d10. On crit, that's 16d10, and it ignores resistance, right? And then you can top it off with Touch of Death with Channel Divinity. So Spirit Guardians, that has nothing to do with reverb or the Radiant Orbs, because you're using the necrotic version, right at home here. It feels fantastic running around with this around you. I should have built better for concentration because I lost concentration a lot, but whatever. Ratmancy, I literally dropped and kicked rats or threw rats ahead of time and bursted them towards the end game. I had a lot of ammo. So exploding corpses with bursting sinews, hilarious. Turn Undead felt really good for once because Life Domain and Death Domain, go figure. These both can use Turn Undead, and it adds this like radiant damage, if I can find it. I don't even know where it is. But yeah, it adds like radiant damage now when you use your Turn Undead. It's also a Channel Divinity, so you're missing out on Touch of Death, but certain situations in Act 2 is really good. Clerics are OP thanks to Sanctuary, basically being a spellcaster that can just choose whatever spells they want before each encounter. I don't want that. I can take this instead, right? So I love this guy, man. If you want to play Arthas or the Lich King, like, this is right at home for you. Also, I think there's a bug. Hopefully it's not a bug. Hopefully this is now intended. This says you get one more channel divinity per long rest, but I think if we finish up this fight real quick, I'll go ahead short rest here. Da-da-da. Da-da-da-da. Well, I guess this isn't the best test, but literally we've cleaned out all 3 channel divinities and 3 more just came back. Okay, so I know that wasn't the best example of it. You're all not supposed to do that. Devs, Larry and I really hope you don't change that. Just keep it the way it is right now. I love this. I love having 3 Touch of Death smites, I call them smites, on short rest, and then I don't have to spend my spell slots. And there's a reason I like that. I won't get into all that. I played a Cleric Smiter before and it just felt like it's trying to do too much. Here, I get my cake and eat it too, because I can do this on short rest. I could make the whole build about Touch of Death because of that. So before even thinking of multi-class, by the way, I could have played this with Animate Dead. As a Necromancer, I can go up to the highest level and make 3 ghouls, okay? This is kind of a requirement. Spell slots higher and higher are a requirement for really being a good Necromancer. Not to mention getting the powerful Create Undead Mummy. So you can be a really good Necromancer as just a dedicated level 12 Death Domain Cleric. You could have played more of a Bone Chill Eldritch Blaster, since your Reaper allows you to shoot 2 targets with your Bone Chill. Okay, similar to Eldritch Blasting with 3 blasts, right? You could have done more my standard idea for a lot of clerics. You use weapons, but you actually get like a polearm, like maybe the Drake Throat. Do I have a polearm? Like a polearm like this, and use the Sentinel skill because you have this big reach, right? Polearm Mastery, you can reach things further, you can keep things locked down, you can use Spirit Guardians to keep them near you. So you could be doing that. But honestly, you could just take this a lot of ways thanks to having nearly all the necromancy related spells, some new cantrips, exploding corpses. Spirit Guardians isn't necromancy, but you can use the necrotic version. You do have necromancy like Ray of Sickness, Bestow Curse, Contagion, the Insect Plague, I guess, kind of like, it all feels necromancy related. It's all here. Yeah, if this is your style, you didn't have to play a dude in heavy armor. In fact, you don't get heavy armor proficiency, you get martial weapon proficiency and medium armors. So what I did is I took heavy armor. This gives me 1 strength and the ability to use heavy armor since I already had medium armor. Now I get to use Kethric's armor, look like a Death Knight, and I get the high strength, right? So this just felt versatile like Spore Druid. And for those who watched a run called the Fun Guy Spore Druid run on stream, basically we played all pure level 12 classes back then, and Spore Druid really impressed me. It was the cornerstone of the team, and this subclass can feel like that as well. It could do everything. It could do melee strength. It could have done ranged attacks, ranged cantrips, spell casting, control spells. Blade Barrier was used in the Gortash fight to control the area really well. Like, this thing's barely ever seen or used, but it's very powerful if used correctly. I could do anything on this guy, especially if I built him for that. Why would you walk into you didn't see that. So somebody kind of walked into the Blade Barrier. Anyway, but yeah, by the way, do not cast Spirit Guardians while in Sanctuary. There's a possible bug I can't replicate. It screwed me a little bit on a fight where I cast Sanctuary on myself, and then next turn I cast Sanctuary or Spirit Guardians. Anytime you do something offensive, you come right out of Sanctuary, you're good to go. But somehow this dropped concentration, and I lost not only the Sanctuary effect, but I also lost, you know, the freaking Spirit Guardians, so that was dumb. But anyway, what am I going to play next? Obviously, I enjoyed these, so there's a high bar now for the next 4 I'm going to use. We're going to go right back into Honor mode, probably tonight's stream, and I'm going to play Blade Singer Wizard, I'm going to play Glamour Bard, and I'm going to play Crown Paladin and Swarmkeeper Ranger. You can tell that I've made recent videos covering these guys, so I'm very much inclined to see how they do. I don't really care if they're on the best team for each other. I tried to match up Glamour and Crown a little bit. Seems like Control Beasts, Blade Singer and Crown Paladin being together near each other might be a really good teamwork. And then there's the double smite, actually, smiting and booming blade. And Swarm Keeper, I could play a million different ways. I'm going to play it with the Lightning Archer you saw in that video, but we'll see how they stack up against Reggie and the team here, because these four felt amazing to play. I highly recommend, again, scrolling back up here, I highly recommend these guys. They are fantastic. Larian has seemingly done a great job with all the new subclasses, from the amazing animations, by the way. I don't know if you've seen how cool these animations look, right? I'm gonna shoot Shadowheart here. Yeah! Or some of the new visual effects and whatnot, but also they just play really well, even on their own merits. I would not tell you need to like multi-class or these that don't hold up to beat honor mode. Anything can technically beat honor mode. That's one of the big highlights of my channel. I try to point out for you guys, but I love playing these guys. And so, who's my sponsors? You guys are. I know this is a talky video. This is really more just for those who are interested in the subclasses playing, how they hold up. Did I encounter any game-breaking bugs? No. But yeah, thanks for listening to me blab. I'm just going to leave it at that, and I'll see you in the next stream. If you're interested in these guys, we're going to see how they actually, how do you use and level and play up these builds? Well, let's actually go find out how good these guys are next, all right? Until then, you guys have a great day, and I appreciate you. Bless you.